The Irish Rally Podcast is brought to you in association with Tech and Tools, PFT Travel, SVS Productions and Rally Connection.
Becs Williams, welcome to The Whole Person by the Irish Rally Podcast. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you very much for asking me, Tony. It's a delight to be here. It's odd being on the other end of kind of an interview scenario, but I'll do my best.
We were just laughing at that. Yeah, it must be such a funny experience for you to actually have the roles reversed now.
Yeah, it is. I've actually done another interview today with a lady, and I did end up interviewing her at one point. God, what am I doing? I don't know how to answer questions about me because it's never about me.
And it's one of those things too, like whenever your day job is just, it's as intense as yours, you end up being the person that just slips into their job all the time.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you though how second nature it is to you.
It is second nature now. I mean, I've been doing it a long, long time. And yeah, it's completely second nature to start interviewing people, to start discovering more about people, because that's, my general interest is another person rather than myself. I never, when I started this career in motorsport broadcasting, or in sport broadcasting, it was never about me. It was always about the other person, and still is. So it is odd then to, be interviewed. Not that I can't do it. I can. I can talk about myself. Normally, it takes a couple of gins to talk about myself, but, we're early evening, so I'm on the squash tonight. You've got a great Becs this evening.
Brilliant. That's actually a beautiful segue in, really, because I was just explaining to you that the format of this series is to kind of jump straight in and not give a formal introduction to who I'm talking to. And when I say jump straight in, it's straight into childhood and your upbringing and stuff. And with all that being said, I mean, were you always that inquisitive, interested character even as a kid?
Yes, I definitely say I was. I always liked. Yeah, I was inquisitive, and my parents found, gosh, this is years and years ago now, they found a tape, which my dad still had a tape recorder, and he put it in to find out what it was. And it was this very sped up kind of just gibberish. And they managed to slow it down. And it was me and my cousin that we were pretending that we were BBC breakfast presenters, and we were interviewing. And I must have been 6, 7, maybe younger than that. And I was interviewing her, and I wanted to find out all about her life, and she was pretending to be this movie star. I would say I was always very inquisitive about other people, and places as well. I don't know. I was quite in my childhood, because I was the youngest of 3 children. I had 2 elder brothers, but they were quite a bit older than I was. So I didn't have, kind of siblings to play with. I was very much, kind of on my own as a child in the house. And, left to your own devices, then you become, I think, more inquisitive, more probably more creative in your mind with things to do. I read a lot as a child. My mother couldn't keep up with books because I was just going through them so quickly. So yes, inquisitive, definitely a good word.
And did you find that, it was very specific, I suppose, to be interviewing your cousin? Like the actual, like the format of interviewing is incredibly interesting. Like that, even at whatever age you were saying there, like 6 or 7, that you were actually taking on that like role of a BBC presenter. Like that is so. It sounds like you always knew what you wanted to do.
Yeah, when I say it like that, it does, doesn't it? But the truth is that I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I think it's very difficult, isn't it, when you're growing up, to know what you want to do in life, because it's such it feels like when you're in school and teachers are asking you, you need to, think about what you want to do with your career, and you think, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't know who I am, let alone what I want to do with a career as such.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any idea. I'll be honest. I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do with myself.
And at 16 or 17 years of age, to be sitting in a school trying to decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And as you rightfully say, you don't really even know who you are.
No.
Would you ever have imagined your life looking like this?
No. If, the me now could, go back to my 16-year-old self, it would be like, holy shit, it's nothing like you ever imagined it was going to be your career, because it's completely different. I never imagined I would travel the world. I didn't leave the country until I was, let me think, probably 20 was my first,
Wow.
jaunt on an airplane, because my parents were, both, working class people. There wasn't a huge amount of money around when I was younger. We went on a holiday every year, but always in the UK, always in Wales.
Mm-hmm.
We never went abroad. And of course, the big thing in the 80s with lots of people was, flying abroad, going here, there and everywhere. Spain was the big destination. And I didn't miss that. And I never was jealous of my friends who were doing that, because I loved our holidays at Barry Island, which is now being made famous by, Gavin and Stacey. I loved all of that. But, we grew up, kind of not experiencing all of that. To then, as a career, travel so much. I could never have contemplated that, going back and saying to my younger self, you'll be traveling, you'll be on a plane every 2 weeks, maybe every week.
Mm-hmm.
Unheard of. And to be broadcasting, to be behind a microphone, talking about motorsport. No.
I know.
No.
And I mean,
no one in my family drove.
Yeah, that's what
no one in my family drove.
Motorsport wasn't something you were brought up with even.
No. I mean, since I've been working in rallying, I've met so many people who have the family history is motorsport. It's through their blood, it's in their veins, that's what they've grown up with. And then a lot of people then assume it was the same for me, and it's totally the opposite. And I'm glad to say there are some rally drivers in the same vein as well, mm-hmm. who had absolutely no motorsport in their family. But I think mine's slightly different in the fact that nobody drove a car. My parents didn't drive. My mother could drive. She was taught to drive by her father. And she used to drive like little vans around when she was younger, but she had no inclination to then go and pass her test, mm-hmm. and actually be a legal driver, not an illegal driver in the mountains where we lived. My dad didn't want to drive. My elder brother had no interest. And the brother just above me, he learnt to drive maybe a year after I did. And there's 10 years between us, and I passed my test when I was 21.
Wow.
So, he was in his 30s when he passed his test. But I was fascinated by cars. And my grandfather gifted my brother an old car of his, and it mm-hmm. sat outside our house for years. And he never drove it. Wow. But I would go and sit in it and, play with the steering wheel and be like, gear stick. And in my mind, I can remember thinking, how do people know? How do you know when to change gear in a car? Because I didn't have a huge amount of experience being in cars, it would just be in friends' cars. I'd watch as whoever was driving would be changing gear, and I'd be like, but how do they know? How do they know when to move this gear stick? And the whole mechanics of cars fascinated me. Mm-hmm. But it's like I had no outlet. I had no way to explore it. And I'd been to one rally when I was younger, mm-hmm. that my brothers had taken me to. And then, motorsport, kind of like it is in Ireland in a way, it's also big in Wales, mm-hmm. and big here. So, you're aware there's motorsport around you. And I think probably through my brothers, through that experience when I was younger, watching sport, my family was very into watching sport, not into doing sport, but into watching sport.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of it on the TV. And back in the day, we were lucky that we did have rallying that was on television, a motorsport that was on TV. And that's how other than the first experience I ever had, that's how I became a fan of motorsport, let's say, and it really developed from probably late teen, I would say, because I remember being in university and following McRae's first WRC victory via the likes of CFAX and teletext and all of those tools back in the day that you had to use, and then watching a week later the program that went out on BBC. and I mean, how much it's changed since then.
It must be such a fascinating thing for you to think of those memories and to think of what you do now, and how you've kind of helped blaze a trail for us to be able to be sitting at home in Ireland or Wales or whatever it is, and for the event to be happening across the world and for us to see it in the moment. That's a very lovely thing to say. It's very mad to think that I'm part of it. It is, because following rallying back then was so difficult. It was so difficult. And, you know, my friends had no understanding of what it was. Some of them still don't. to be fair, some of them are still like, what do you do for a job? I don't understand. Although one did listen to my Backstories podcast a couple of weeks ago and messaged me to say, I've listened to my first ever podcast. I was like, oh, wow. Brilliant.
Thinking it's going to be true crime or something. And I was like, oh, which one? Your one with Michelle Mouton. What a woman she was. This girl has no interest in motorsport at all. But I was like, wow, I'm impressed by that. But yeah, back in the day, there was nothing. And now it's great because there are so many outlets that are doing so many different things with motorsport. Yeah. Technology's moved on so much that you can broadcast events in various different ways. It's, thank God.
I know, it truly is incredible when you think back to your days where you had to check the teletext in college to see what was going on. Yeah,
I can't remember what the page number was now, but I know other people do remember it heart by heart. But that's how you did it. And, you know, there used to be a phone line in the UK that you could ring as well, especially around Wales Rally GB time. There used to be a phone line you could ring and you could get the rally result. Goodness knows how much they were charging per minute to listen to that.
That's unbelievable.
But, yeah.
And so back in those days, Becs, when you were at uni and you were kind of chasing the results and figuring out how Colin McRae and those guys were doing, do you think that kind of spurred you on to get the license and to go for the driving lessons and stuff whenever you were 21?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it did. I was fiercely independent, still am, but I was, you know, fiercely independent, and I knew I wanted to drive as soon as I could. I would have learnt to drive as soon as I got my provisional license, but we just simply didn't have the money to be able to have consecutive driving lessons back then. And I would never have, you know, pushed my parents to say, oh, this is something I really want to do it. If the money had been there, they would have done it in a heartbeat, but it wasn't. So I remember being in uni and starting to learn to drive there in Exeter, which is, you know, I come from a small town in Wales. Learning to drive here probably would have been a lot easier than learning on the city centre streets of
I know.
But, you know, that's where I learned to drive, and I kind of funded myself to get the lessons. So my parents helped out a little bit, and, you know, I had part-time jobs and everything when I was in uni to make things work, and that's how I did it. I wouldn't say, though, that the whole rallying thing inspired me, because I had no inclination to be, you know, a driver.
Yeah.
I knew my limitations pretty early on.
That fascinates me though, Becs, considering how much detail you used to put on, like whenever you were sitting as a passenger watching.
Yeah.
Because that's what I did. I was just like, look at their hands. What are they doing? What are their feet doing? What pedals? What's going on?
Yeah.
And how that has never, even in all of these years, how you just haven't been like, do you know what? I'm going to get behind the wheel for a minute here.
Do you know what? If I had the opportunity, I probably would, because I love driving. I do love driving. And I love, you know, I love feeling the response of a car, you know, to the way I'm handling it. I know when it's happy. I know when it's not happy. I would love to do it, but there's never been that burning passion in me that's gone, oh, I'm gonna go and do this. One, I'd be a little bit worried that I would be throwing a car off a road very quickly, because I'm one of those people who can be pretty confident up to the point of stupidity. So I'd be very worried that I'd be in a ditch very quickly. I don't know where this has come from, and I wish there's this part of me I wish I could change. But when you're when someone challenges you to do something, and it could be like, oh, I'm gonna jump further than you, or I'm gonna run faster than you, and I'd be like, no, you're not. I'm gonna hit you with that. And I'd have absolutely no experience in whatever this is, but I would still, in my kind of cocky mind, go, I'm going to challenge you to that. And I've fallen on my arse quite a few times, but it still doesn't stop me saying it every time.
And that definitely, I suppose, when you think about rally cars, that not knowing the limits, I suppose, is not it's not a pleasant combination whenever you're sitting behind the wheel. No. And I mean, you've sat on. You've had the opportunity to sit on.
I would either be that crazy person in the ditch, or I'd be way too slow, and it would be embarrassing.
Thinking,
I don't think there would be a medium.
Yeah, because it is funny, but basically, you are either going to push too far and obviously be in a ditch, or you're going to think to yourself, no, I can't be in the ditch. There's too much at stake here. I want to enjoy the rest of the stages, or I don't want to wreck the car. And so, as you say, you'll pull back and you'll end up kind of doing nothing. But you've been a passenger in some of probably the most fantastic cars out there. Has that ever tickled your fancy even?
No, I didn't even want to be a passenger even. And I know this is going to sound really, really stupid considering the job I do and how much I love rallying. But because I'm a control freak, not being in control of a car, I struggle with on a daily basis. Yeah. I mean, whenever we go to events and, we have hire cars, I'm always checking our call sheet to see, A, am I the driver? B, if I'm not, who is the driver? Yeah. Because do I want to be in a car with that person? And it's the thought then of being in a rally car and not having control, not being able to brake or whatever, stopped me going in a rally car for a couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think my first experience wasn't actually in a rally car. It was in a circuit racing car. It was when I covered the British Touring Car Championship, and it was the Ford Mondeo of Alain Menu around Silverstone. That was my first ever kind of co-drive experience. Yeah, it was very, very cool. Yeah, it was great. I loved it. I loved, it's completely exhilarating, but also at the same time, got a bit of a nervous twitch, like, God. Because I love the speed. I love speed, but I'm sure you feel this way. It's not having the control,
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the way you describe driving is the way I would describe it. And so for me to be on the other side is petrifying, absolutely petrifying. I couldn't, I literally couldn't. I honestly do believe that navigators are next level people.
Yeah, they're a rare breed. Honestly, there is something in their minds which, A, they're brilliant, but B, there's also something a little bit missing to be able to actually sit next to someone and, physically encourage them as well to go faster. Come on, keep it down, go on.
Exactly. It's insane. But very interesting at the same time. And it does fascinate me how people can, people are so in love with rallying and are so dedicated to it, but how the itch just doesn't kind of come to everyone, that the love for the sport is genuinely there with or without the competing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's so interesting.
I've met thousands of people like that, actually, who really adore rallying, but have no inclination to get into the driving seat or the co-driving seat. And I think it's probably they are aware of their own limitations. They enjoy the thrill of just watching. That's thrill enough. I mean, I'm sure many people would absolutely jump at the chance of being driven by a world-class driver on a stage. There's nothing quite like it. It kind of really opened my eyes in lots of different ways. I think, and the main one was just the control at such pace of the car and minor things that they were doing, which were making such a huge difference. But I've met so many people who are like, no, I don't want to drive. I don't want to co-drive even, but I like watching it. And,
I love watching it.
I fall into that category. However, I have driven a rally car.
Amazing.
Not a lot of people know this. I don't really talk about it much because it wasn't legal.
We say nothing.
So it's not something that's widely discussed. Yeah, it was a Peugeot 205, and it was late 90s maybe. And it was in some woodland, not far from here, that I had, I think I probably did about 5 kilometers in total in the car on a test road. And I loved it. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But I know that I could never be a driver for the reasons I have already spelled out. That is not where my talent lies. But I loved the experience.
I mean, that is like, I've heard that so many times before, where people just like, they have notions of it, but at the same time, they just know that it's something that's not for them in the long run. And I mean, you mentioned your talents there, and you really do have such incredible talent and within the role, within the rallying world. Do you feel like your experience of sitting behind the wheel or sitting as a passenger did open your eyes a little bit further into like a different aspect of the sport, or just give you that wee bit more of an inside information?
I think it just gave me a bit more of an insight a bit more insight information, and, you know, even more respect than I did have, because I think, you know, I always have had huge respect for drivers and co-drivers and, you know, doing what they do. And every time they leave a start line, it's, you know, huge exhilaration, fun and all the rest of it, but it's hugely dangerous at the end of the day, every time they do that. And I have a massive respect for what they do. Getting into the car with Thierry, also Juho Hänninen, I saw, it didn't really open my eyes any more than the respect and knowledge I already had, let's say, other than, you know, instinctively, you know, the instincts that they had, because I was very lucky, you know, we were in Rally Portugal, and I went on the FAF stage with both of the drivers, and I did that FAF stage 6 times.
Wow. So
I've done the jump a number of times, so I can tell you the correct line to take for that jump. But you know, it's the reactions of both of them, and it was so different. Thierry Neuville's driving was so smooth and calm in comparison to Juho Hänninen's very aggressive style, and you could really feel that in the car. So if anything, you know, it was good to be with 2 different drivers on the same day, to see the 2 different styles in action.
Amazing. And I mean, those experiences by themselves are absolutely unbelievable in many ways. But if we go back a few steps to your college days again, or we call it college in Ireland, but university days, you in university, you did media or it was media study, wasn't it?
It was called a media arts degree with journalism. And I also, as a minor, did theatre because I loved acting. So originally, kind of growing up in teenage years, early teens, I was thinking, I want to be an actress. I want to go into the world of, you know, film and be an actress. And I went to, we have a university here called the Welsh College of Music and Drama, and it's kind of well renowned here as the place to go if you want to go into acting. And I thought, right, I want to do a little bit of, you know, we had the work experience kind of options when we were 15 or whatever, and I wanted to go and spend a week there because I thought that's where I wanted to go. And I rocked up there, and it was very impressive. And, you know, I was put into a class with, obviously, you know, students who were 18 plus. And they were all so annoying and so infatuated with themselves and vain. I was like, I can't be in this world.
Yeah, this can't be my life.
Stand these people. This is horrible. And apologies if any of them now are rally fans and happen to be watching this. And remember the young ginger girl with braces who
no offense intended.
But they were so self-absorbed. I was like, oh no, this is not for me. And I think honestly that week really did tell me quite a bit about myself, in that I never wanted to be the star, and they all did, and that was what the difference was. They were all about themselves on stage and me, and I was a bit like, no, I'm far more behind the scenes person here. And I told the lecturer this, and he was like, or maybe you want to have a look at like set design or something. And I'm like, well, no, you know, you're not getting this, but whatever. And yeah, that ended pretty rapidly. So when I went to uni, I had a couple of months to think about what I wanted to do. And I loved journalism. I was a big news hound. I still am. Very interested in what's going on around the world. And I thought, well, maybe kind of a journalism part degree with some filmmaking, because I loved films. I'm still obsessed with films, all kinds of films, English language, foreign language, silent films, anything. Maybe I could combine the both somehow. And I did this degree where you were taught how to make films from the basics right the way to the top, from script writing to scene setting to editing to actually putting your film together properly. That with photojournalism and journalism and the acting as well. And I had a really interesting degree, and I did lots of interesting things, made films, and thought, this is the route I want to go down. I want to be behind the scenes. I want to be making content, being productive, being creative, that was really my kind of creative juices were really flowing during this degree. And I thought that's ultimately what I wanted to do. But getting into that kind of field of work is not easy when you come back home to Merthyr Tydfil. And you're like, right. So how do I go about being the next Steven Spielberg then? What do I do now? So that was a challenge when I got back.
And what did you do then? What was your next step as in heading out into the big world?
The absolute very next step, I finished university on a Tuesday, and by the Thursday, I was working in our local chocolate factory because I wanted to work. I am not a kind of person who can sit on my hands. And even though it was like summer after uni, you should be just chilling out. I was like, nope. I need to just start the process of earning some money because I've lost enough of it on this bloody course. So I went to work in our local chocolate factory, made chocolates for 4 months, I think.
Perfect.
And during that time, I had just the opportunity then, because, part of me felt like I'm earning some money. I'm kind of starting on a ladder, even if it isn't a chocolate factory. It doesn't matter. I'm still on a ladder.
Work is work.
Work is work. I can look and try and find out how I want to progress with the next step without worrying that I haven't got any money coming in. And I wrote to BBC Wales, which is very big. BBC Wales base is very big. Does drama, music, sport. Doctor Who used to be made in Wales. So I thought I'll write there and see if they've got any opportunities, even if I just go in for work experience. So they said, come and have a week, come and work in various departments. So I went to the drama department, did a couple of days there, went to music. I went everywhere but the sport department. And then that week finished and I thought, what am I going to do now? Yeah. And I was very lucky in that one of the ladies there that I'd kind of encountered, she got my details and rung me and said, look, we have a job as a researcher, 3-week contract. Do you fancy it, just working on this documentary? I was like, yes, I'll take it. And then that started to happen quite often. So once one contract would finish, another would start. Yeah. And so I worked in drama, again in music. I worked for BBC Radio Wales and this was my first kind of stint in radio. I was working on I'm trying to remember what it was called. I think it was called Tutti Frutti. It was a game show. And I was the scorer on the game show. So I would introduce the teams and then I would keep score as they went through this like pop quiz thing. And then all of that kind of kept going. And I eventually ended up in the sport department. And honestly, it was like someone had just like opened a door or opened the curtains, because it was like, this is amazing. Rugby is a big thing for me. It's a huge sport here in Wales. It's one of my passions. Not that I've ever played it. Again, I would probably challenge someone to a ruck and a maul and I would be on the worst end of it. But I've loved watching it all of my years. And sport has such positive stories. And working in that department, it was energetic, it was dynamic. It was of the here and now, of the weekends. Yeah. Because, live sport there's nothing quite like it. And I thought, I want to tell these stories. I want to tell the stories about these people who are doing these magnificent things, because they're absolutely striving to be the best person they can be. And, what's better than that? And there's trials and tribulations along the way and missteps, but I think I want to be working in this domain. And that contract again then came to an end, and it was like, I can't keep doing this 3-week thing. So I started looking for a sports agency in Cardiff. And this is where I would say the biggest luck came within my career, is that I found one. And not only did I found one, I found one that worked in rugby and in rallying.
Wow.
In the
Jackpot.
WRC. It was like ding, 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 ding. Someone must have been looking down on me that day. And I had the interview, and it wasn't for a reporting job. The interview was it was a purely admin role. But I was like, I want to just get in here and I'll move up. I'll
foot in the door.
To do things. Exactly. I want to get my foot in the door. And I did. And that's then when it started properly. And my love of, sport in general, which had always been a love, because we'd been, like I say, big sporting family, but not from the doing side, definitely from the watching side. And rallying all came together as one. And I was able to continue where I'd kind of started with BBC and broadcast on radio, and continue that and the training that I'd had there. And had a bit of a stab at being a reporter.
Brilliant.
It was in circuit racing first before rallying.
And I mean, do you think that, you mentioned the broadcasting was obviously, you knew you kind of wanted to be there, and obviously whenever it became live sport, you kind of just were like, wow, this is it. Do you think it was the adrenaline, the high pressure kind of wow?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people do really work well when there is pressure, high pressure and full adrenaline. I certainly do. I'm can be a total last minute girl on lots of different projects. And I think the excitement it's that absolute buzz of live sport. And I was really then privileged to be able to discover it in like wonderful ways, working in circuit racing. And it was really like, I was like at the baby level. So I worked as part of British Touring Cars. There were support races, Formula Ford, and the Ford Fiesta Zetec Championship. It had a much longer name than that. I can't remember the whole name.
I remember.
Basically, and that's where I started my broadcasting career. And we would turn up at the circuit, and it was all radio. So we basically contact as a sports agency. We put out a press release saying, we're going to be broadcasting from these events during the weekend. And then BBC local stations and independent radio stations would get in contact with us and say, Joe Bloggs is in car number 47. Can you do us a 30-second radio report into our sports news on Saturday? Like, yeah. So you'd have then this whole list. So from about midday on a Saturday till 5 p.m, our hours were completely full, and we'd do maybe about 20 broadcasts per hour for different stations with different people. So it was ram-packed high adrenaline, keeping everybody up to date. And Saturday was qualifying day, so there wasn't a huge amount to talk about. And then Sunday on race day would just be like the big BBC stations and the big independents that would take your sports stuff. But it was always live into a news broadcast, right at the end. They'd be like, right, we're going over to Silverstone now and Becs Williams. And then boom, you'd be on. Yeah. You'd have to talk for 30 seconds and then you were off again. And then you're on to the next station.
I mean, it is incredible. And when you think about it, like if you just think about the layout of that, it's not different to rallying or any sport really, but I think specifically rallying actually, because you're on for the day, but you're on for such short periods of time, quick bursts, and then you have a break, and then quick burst, and then you have a break. And you've got to have this like burst of energy and real hungry focus as well, which is incredible. It's a totally different skill set to sort of most humans, I would say.
It's very bizarre if you're watching someone doing it. And I spent like one event just shadowing another journalist, watching how he did it, and I was like, he's a bit mental, because he'd be sat there at his desk and just preparing, and then we'd had this piece of kit called a Glen Sound. You'd dial into a radio station, had his headset on, and he'd be like completely normal. And he'd be saying things like, yep, I'm here, standing by. And then as soon as he'd start, he'd be like this firework of hands, and he's talking like this. And I'd be sitting back thinking, Jesus Christ. But he gave me the best advice I ever had, because he was like, when you speak to these stations, or when you're you're talking on the radio. Just imagine you're telling your best friend the most fantastic story you've ever heard. You need to be that passionate.
Yeah.
And he was absolutely right, because you do, especially in radio terms, you need to have that delivery which grabs someone, but also gives them a huge amount of information as well.
Yeah, without being so wordy that you kind of have lost you, which is an incredible thing.
Yeah. I think, you can get lost in lots of words and complicated words, but then you lose half your audience if you do that.
Exactly. And I mean, then, so you started off on circuits and touring cars and stuff, and then, moving into the world of rallying just must have been like a homecoming for you.
It felt like that's where I wanted to be. That's what I was aiming for. And my first event then was the very year that I started in the company. So, I worked doing kind of their admin for not very long at all before I moved into reporting. So then we had to get another person to do that. But it was called the Network Q Rally of Great Britain then. And it was the British round in 99. That was my first WRC event.
Wow.
And
straight in at the deep end.
Yeah. Your first rally. Oh, let's just make it a WRC one. Let's not start with, the Persia One Make Series or the British Rally Championship. No, let's go.
Let's go to the WRC. We'll throw it right in.
And honest to God, it was a baptism of fire. Because you're surrounded. It's like being like a kid in a candy shop, because Tommy Mackinnon had already won the championship that year. So I first arrived at Cheltenham Racecourse we were based at. I'd seen the Focuses all go around the roundabout coming from scrutineering, and you're like, oh, the Martini livery Focus.
I know.
God. And then Tommy Mackinnon is up on stage. He'd just been doing some donuts, and he's up on stage talking to the fans, and there's so many people there and this buzz. And you're like, shit, I've got to tell people about this cross country on the radio. And you start realizing the enormity of the sport. Not that you didn't anyway, but when you're in it, when you're there, you feel even more responsibility to get it right.
Yeah.
And I still remember that feeling, that whole butterflies. I feel sick. I just want to go home. But no, I don't really. But I do feeling of, what am I doing here? But it was a really fun event. But I was glad to see the end of Sunday, because I think there was about 5 of us all doing radio reports, and we were all completely done come the end of it, because it was so intense. And then it's gone, and I did WRC that event in 99. Then it moved to Wales in 2000, so I did the Welsh round in 2000, 2001 British Rally Championship events as well during those 2 years. And then in 2002 we started World Rally Radio on the WRC. And from 2002 onwards, I've been full-time working.
Which really and truly, Becs, the rally radio was a game changer for rally fans around the world. It is. It was such an incredible bit of technology at that time.
It was, and I was talking to someone earlier about this. She was asking me, how has technology changed since you started and until now? And I'm like, oh my God. I don't know where to start here, because, in 2002, World Rally Radio, we just had, we took an entire radio station with us. I remember it being wheeled into the airport, like these huge flight cases filled with all kinds of equipment. We set up in a little truck, part of the old silver WRC trucks that used to be in the service park. We had a little room in there, which was mostly equipment, and we were just squeezed in broadcasting, because there wasn't really that much space. We only had people in the service park. We couldn't have anyone at stage ends. The technology simply wasn't there to be able to talk to drivers at a stage end, because mobile phone technology existed, but getting signal up in the mountains, even now in some places it's still really dodgy. But back then, forget it. We tried all kinds of things in 2002 to get stage end comments, and we didn't. It was only in 2003 that we kind of explored that a bit more. But you're right, at the time, it was the only way to follow everything live as much as you could, even though we were just giving out times and splits and interviews with the drivers. But you could hear from them. You could hear from them, as the event was going on. And they were fun times. They were. The first couple of events, the first event in particular, I don't think it'll ever leave me, the excitement. but also the sheer terror of what was about to happen, because my boss, Greg Strange, who he'd, initially kind of come up with the idea of it and spoken to Chris Rawls, who was our technical director at the time, and then spoken to me about it. And we were like, yeah, this could work, this could happen. And he said, yeah, we need someone to, host it for the whole day. And I remember saying to him, well, who are we going to get to do that? He was like, well, you're going to do that. I was like, no, I can't talk for 10 hours a day. I was like, I can't. And he was like, no, you can interview people. It'll be fine. And Greg was very much a throw you in the deep end kind of guy. And he did it to me all the time, which was infuriating. But also, when you look back on it now, it's like, actually, it was the best thing he could have done. It does work. It did work for me. But I remember us all being so nervous before Monte Carlo got underway. And the first couple of hours, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 hours of broadcasting, we'd set up an email address, which was radio@wrc.com. That's ingrained in my brain, the amount of times I said it over the years. No one was emailing us. We're like, oh, there's no one listening. There's no one listening to this. And then Chris had worked out that he actually hadn't kind of set up the email properly on his laptop, and
Brilliant.
Nothing had been downloading. So he was like, oh, I haven't clicked this box or whatever. And he did. And it was literally thousands of emails from people from everywhere. Just, they were listening. Hi, I'm from Paraguay. And we're like, we couldn't believe it. We could not believe it. It was really, it was quite a time to be part of all of that. And I mean, we had our ups and downs with it. Gosh, we really did, but it was thoroughly enjoyable.
I know. And I mean, so validating once all of those emails gushed in and you finally saw, okay, this is worth it. People are listening. What we're doing does make sense.
People are listening. Exactly. I'm not just sat here desperate for pee and I can't leave for nothing for hours.
Sitting in this tiny little room.
Yeah, and it was such a small place we were broadcasting from first. It really was tiny. And how we managed to get 3 of us in there, I don't know. There was never a room for a guest. Like the second presenter would always have to leave if we had a guest, so I could interview.
That is incredible. Considering now where you're at now, 20 years later, and WRC all live, the difference is, and I mean, I'm thinking now, because all I can remember was the story you told about when you were in uni and you could ring or possibly, ring these phone lines to see who's doing what. Yeah. And now it's one click and we all have all the information we need.
Yeah, but it's one click and you can be on a stage in a car with the driver.
Literally.
I mean, tell us that in 2002 that, in 20 years, actually less than 20 years, this is going to be happening. And you'd be like, good luck with that, mate. We can't get bloody mobile phone reception at the stage end, let alone be on board with the driver. It still kind of surprises me, even though, and technology does this, it goes wrong at times. And we all know now on All Live when it goes wrong, because people will message in and say, this isn't working, that isn't working. And for the most part, whoever I'm commentating with, we're in our own little bubble. So we never know if there's a technical problem at all. We're just alone with our microphones and the screen in front of us. Mm-hmm. But, my phone will start flashing. I'll be like, what? Why is this going so many times? And it'll be people saying, oh, there's a technical issue here, or we can't click on that. And you're like, right, okay. And someone else deals with all of that. But of course, you're like the shop window for All Live. So people are going to contact you, which is totally fine. But yeah, technology is beautiful when it works. It's amazing. So, and I am still amazed by what we can do. But also when it goes wrong, you're a bit like, oh, God.
I know. It does. I think, particularly nowadays, I think we are so used to technology being so incredible that when it doesn't work, we're ready to cry, but we're also like, what is happening? How is this even happening? We're able to do all these things and now it's not working. But one of the things, when I hear you speak, one of the things that, and I've mentioned this already, but you clearly thrive on the high pressure and the adrenaline and the excitement of all of this crazy intense stuff that you are working on and that you're kind of working within. But Becs, how do you chill out? How do you come back to yourself in between all these events and all of this crazy exciting stuff?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually, because I find it very difficult to relax, to chill out, because I like the momentum of doing all of these events. And there was a period last year, I think I was away for a whole month, 4 weeks on the trot. This year, there's a period where I'm going to be away for 5 weeks, rally after rally after rally. And I'm really looking forward to it because I love that. But I find it then hard when you come home and it's like silence after a whole weekend of just constant talking from yourself, but also, we're doing, what people, I guess, don't see is when we're not commentating, we're out doing more interviews, or we're out doing something for the post-production show. A feature needs to be filmed. There's never downtime, really. It's very rare that you'll ever sit down with a cup of coffee during a rally day because there's no time. Which is fine. That's good for me. It's good for all of us, because the more you keep busy, the better it is. And we all love what we're doing. But I think people genuinely think that once we finish commentating, we're like, pour us a cocktail, mate. I'll have a daiquiri. Thank you very much. And as much as in my fantasy land, that is the way it works. It isn't. So when I come home, it's very quiet because it's so busy on events. And then all of a sudden there's just this silence. And I like that for a day. But then after that, I need people again. I need to crack on with the next thing. I do find it very hard to relax.
And have you any sort of wee hobbies or things that, like, rituals that you have to do in order to kind of bring you back down to, I'm home now, I'm not working. Okay.
I'm very lucky in that my closest family, which is now my elder brother and his family, they live in the same street as I do. And he always looks after my house when I'm away. And he brings me down to earth quite rapidly whenever I see him. So there's never, ever any time to get anywhere above yourself in your head after an event. Even if it's gone really well, and if you've had loads of people going, it was amazing, you were fantastic, I'll come home and my brother will say something really disparaging to me, and you're like, and I'm back to life.
This is me. Okay.
Really are. Yeah. So I don't really have a huge amount of hobbies that I do. I like seeing a lot of my friends. I make sure I make time for friends. I am writing a book at the minute, which is taking up quite a bit of my time. And other than that, I don't, because there's not much time to do other things.
Yeah.
Like I used to, and I still do, go to a dance class. I love dancing. But you can't do it with any great frequency when you're away so much. So you miss a week, you miss that week, and then you've missed all these steps. And I mean, I'm not the most coordinated of people anyway. So then when you return, you're even worse than you were before. But yeah, there's not a huge amount of time between all the travel. Because I like to keep myself busy at home. We've got the Backstories podcast now, which has come back. Yeah. Just started up for series 4. So I'm trying to do quite a quota of those in the next few weeks. And I'm looking forward to doing that. I'd love to have some more hobbies, though. And that's a really great question. And now I'm even questioning my entire lifestyle because I haven't got a hobby. I need a hobby. What can I do?
That is not the purpose. Because to be honest with you, Bex, like what I see is that like you are such a people person, like, and people are your everything. And so whether that be chatting to somebody on an event or whether that be coming home and straight to the family, and that's the thing that grounds you back into who you are.
Yeah, no, definitely. I am definitely a people person. I like the kind of the day off on my own after an event because I don't think it's the event that, okay, you're working for a whole weekend and it's long hours. You're going to get tired from that. But it's then the travel that is the annoying bit of it, getting home, and especially at the moment when travel links are rubbish. And you get a bit annoyed by that. And then you get in the house and calm. And I like having 24 hours just to, drink a lot of coffee and not do very much. But then, I need the contact of people and
that's kind of that energy of other people is what kind of like lifts you up as a human being, probably.
Yeah, no, it is. You're right there. I find that because even when when you've been home for quite a period of time, and I always find this, when we went into COVID, when we were locked down, and that was the most I'd ever been on the ground in my, in the last 20 years.
That must have been such a difficult thing for you then, Bex, like to be
it was weird. I wouldn't say it was, I wouldn't say it was difficult, because I would be lying there. There's so many people who had difficult times during that period. It wasn't difficult, but it was weird not speaking to people and not having, like you said, the energy of other people around you. And my doorstep, like many people's doorstep, became a magic doorstep. Friends would come and leave things on it, and you talk to people from a doorstep and not having them in the house, or not being able to go out at some points. It was absolutely awful. I wouldn't want to go through that again. But in the same breath, I thought I would get loads done in that period. I thought I would learn language. I thought I'd finally finish the painting in the house. I did none of that.
I know.
Absolutely nothing. It wasn't exactly a productive time for me, and I didn't bake any banana bread either.
Even I, thank God.
I don't like bananas, so I wouldn't have done that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I mean, it was one of those things. You see, this is the interesting thing about COVID specifically, actually, is that like a lot of people kind of, some people, not everybody now, but some people were kind of cross at themselves that they didn't get so much done. I had all this time and I couldn't get this done. But we were living under such bizarre circumstances. Like our brains were not operating the way that they would if we were at work, because we weren't able to do, we were scared essentially the whole time. Yeah. And when your brain's afraid, you're not operating in that kind of space. So to be able to just get through the day is one of the major things. But I would imagine in that space, you also kind of maybe had a lot of inspiration come through as well for what you were going to do when you got back out on stages again.
I think so. And I think we were lucky in that, obviously it became very apparent very quickly, didn't it, that it was going to last longer than just the 2 weeks that everyone initially thought we would be staying in our houses. And, our communications guys, our bosses at WRC were like, well, we need to do something. Let's do some esports stuff. And I've been a massive advocate for esports over the years. And it was like, I've done some commentary on esports. Let's create a little esports championship. And we did it with the junior drivers. We did it with some of the P1 drivers. And that took up a little bit of time as well. Doing all of that from home, though, was quite bizarre with technology links and linking out to people, this, that, and the other. And it was always, you kind of dressed for business up top, you got your pajamas on at the bottom, doing these esports commentaries. And I was pretty lucky in that time that we then started traveling again in the August of that year, the July or the August, I think it was the July. We had instead of Rally Finland running, because it couldn't, they did a massive esports thing instead. And we flew to Finland for that, which again was quite bizarre to then be back on a plane in COVID regulations. But I think it was a strange time. And I'm sure you're right that not many people achieved anything that they wanted to achieve in that time. But then you've got these other people who were, moved mountains during this time off. And I'm thinking, why can't I have a bit of whatever you have in your brain that makes you do that? I just want a little bit of it, because I spent a lot of time. Actually, I started watching Netflix because I had it, but I'd never watched a single thing on Netflix until that time. And I was like, well, I'm paying for it every bloody month.
And you mentioned your love for film as well.
I know. But because work had been so busy and everything, I just hadn't had time to even get into Netflix. Yeah. And the first thing I watched on Netflix was The Fall, which I think came out in like 2014. Yeah. And I eventually got to it in 2020.
And I mean, that was a heavy one to start into as well. Brilliant.
Oh, you know what? Absolutely brilliant. But I had such regrets about watching that really late at night. And then going to bed, and then you're like,
I know, afraid to actually even close your eyes. Intensity is definitely your thing anyway. The high pressure scenarios.
Yeah, obviously, it must be.
When you think back even over the last 20 or 30 years, like, can you put into words how rallying has impacted your life?
Good God, that's a hell of a question. Well, it has been, in terms of my work, it has been my everything. It has impacted me in a huge way, because I have met so many incredible people through it. I think that's the one major thing I would take away from it. The sporting side, yes, it delivers for me every single time. I can walk away from what people might think is the dullest event, but I will have a story to tell that has been exciting. But it's the people that I've met along the way. Because you're traveling, I think, together like a little family, like a little circus, rather than a family. You know, it's an intense period of time to be together with people, and we've been thrown into all kinds of situations. You know, there was back in 2010 when we were at Rally Turkey, and the volcano in Iceland went and decided to explode while we were away, and there was this huge ash cloud, and we got stuck there. And I travelled back on a bus with M Sport, and it took us 65 hours on a bus to get back from Turkey to the UK, and we still talk about that to this day. But you're in intense, you know, competitive scenarios with people. You see them through their highs, their lows, whether they be, you know, driver or co-driver or PRs or team bosses or, you know, the chef. You're all the same, and you know you're all doing the same kind of thing and working towards a common goal in the rally. And I think the friendships I've made there, that's the best thing and the most important thing I would take away from my time within WRC is some unbreakable friendships.
Beautiful. And can you even like imagine a life without rallying at this point? What your life could have looked like, or maybe would have looked like?
Well, I could have carried on working in the chocolate factory. I could have, because the money was really good there at the time. And that was quite a hard one to say, I'm going to leave you now. I definitely wouldn't have any teeth left, though, because you could eat a lot of that stuff. And you know what? I don't know. I don't know what it would have been like if I hadn't have gone down that whole sporting route and gone down the rallying route, what it would have been like, what I would be doing. I'm very glad I did. I'm very glad that you know, life steered me towards this path. But I still kind of reinforce, I would never in a million years have dreamed of this for myself or even conceived of it as a job. I'd be like some of my friends are now with, I'm sorry, what is that exactly that you do? I mean, I sat next to a woman on a plane coming back from Rally, Mexico. She was really lovely. American lady. She must have been maybe in her 50s. And she was asking me, you know, why I'd been in Mexico. So I explained, I said, I've been working on a rally. I'm a rally commentator. And she was like, wow, that's so impressive. So you're paid to protest. You commentate protests. No, rally is it's a form of motorsport, and we had to go through the entire thing. And I showed her some videos on my phone, and she was completely blown away. But she thought I stood there with a placard and, you know, commentated on protests happening.
Wow, that is incredible.
She even asked me, what are they protesting about in Mexico?
Jeepers, like that, it just goes to show you, like the word rally means such different things to different people, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And it, you know what, again, after kind of going through America on the way out to Mexico, and then we had like a little holiday after the rally, and we met some Americans there because it was spring break.
Yes,
it's amazing how much they don't know about rally at all. At all. I mean, it's just that, you know, some of them were just, they understand, you know, they know what Formula One is, but they're not even that interested in that. It's all, you know, NASCAR, yes, but rallying, they didn't have a glimpse of what it was.
I know.
And that's disappointing.
Incredible. It is incredible to think that it's something that is so important to us in literally our whole lives, and then other people just don't have a clue what it is. And I mean, you've mentioned that the most important thing, or probably the biggest impact that it's had on your life, for kind of like the friendships and the relationships that you have now. But that's within the sport where everybody understands each other and we all have this common love. But have you ever found it like an isolating thing? Because like that, when you're in the bubble, everybody knows what everybody, like we're all together. But when you go outside of that bubble to the outside world, like a lot of people don't know what it is. Have you ever found it like isolating or lonely?
No, I wouldn't say so. But then even though I spend a lot of time on my own, I'm not a very kind of lonely person, I don't think, because I make the most of any kind of situation that I'm in. But I know, I don't think it's not felt isolating. I totally know what you mean, though. What I found is the understanding, and I think that's been one of the it's not a frustration, it's too big a word to say it's a frustration, but from family and friends, not at the start, certainly really not understanding what I did.
Yeah.
And then, really getting, like, my parents got a real understanding for it. And my mum, bless her, before she died, she would always be listening to the radio. And she'd be one of the many people who would text me going, the radio isn't working, fix the radio. Because she sat at home in the kitchen just listening to it. But, even now there are people that don't quite understand what I do and think that I love this. This is my best friend as well. She's a nurse, so she has a very valid job. She does good things. But she says to me, she'll text me every day, what are you up to today? And I'll say, I'm working. Well, I thought you were a lady of leisure. And this is only a couple of weeks ago, mind you. I'm not a lady of leisure.
One of the most intense jobs in the world.
Yeah, but I suppose, I mean, for her, when I'm away, and she, my family all call it, and I went to see my hairdresser today, and she was like, have a nice holiday. I'm like, I'm not going on holiday. Yeah, you are though, aren't you? You're going to Croatia, still a holiday. You're like, oh, come on.
Once there's an airplane involved, we're all going on holidays.
I know, that's it. And I think it's not a frustration, but it's a little irk when people always kind of refer to it as you're going off on your jollies or whatever. It's like, well, yeah, I'm going to a great country, but you are going there to do some work. Exactly. I feel like I've spent my life trying to prove this to people. I do work, honest.
I know. And I mean, it's one of those things where that's what I mean by the isolating thing, where you just don't get it unless you love rallying.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing. This is probably the whole idea behind this series for me, really, is figuring out. For me, I genuinely believe that people that love rallying are different. Like, there's people that love
in a good and a bad way.
But people that are dedicated to a sport obviously have big dedication and big, drive within that sport or whatever. But I feel like there's something so different about rallying that genuinely there is genuinely something different about us. And whether it be, I do think it's the format of the event itself, because you have to be so committed, whether it's a competitor, an organizer, a spectator, to get into your car and go to these places in the middle of nowhere, or onto an airplane where people think that you're going on your jollies, as you say, when really no, that's you've no idea how hard we work, And for me, the big question was what came first? It's like a chicken and an egg scenario for me. Did our love for rallying kind of mold our personalities into being this way, or do we have certain types of personalities that because we operate this way, we just adored rallying? Yeah,
that's a really deep question. I don't know. For me, I think in some ways, rally has molded me into the person that I am. Mm-hmm. It's given me lots of kind of tricks and tools for living my life, the way we operate on events. I think I suppose there's a certain discipline to the way we work, and that has helped me in life. But also, I think from my side, I've always thought of myself as a positive person, and I get that then repeated back to me by lots of colleagues. You're the most positive person here, or we get a nice energy from you. And I feel that bringing that into our team, certainly sometimes, and into the sport itself, it does help, because there are long hours, and people can, in whatever role they're doing, again, it doesn't have to be the competitors, and it doesn't have to be us in TV. You can go through lulls of feeling quite really down by it, because the hours can be long. And if things aren't going right in your sphere, in your personal section of work, then you do need someone who is quite positive to be able to bring you out of it, because you're spending a lot of time away from home, so away from your comforts, and you're in a foreign country, and maybe work isn't going right. Maybe you've crashed the car. Maybe you've read a wrong note if you're in the competitive field. And then, I think that's why I like having, and I'm really proud to have some, great relationships on the rally with the people I work with, but also the competitors, because I have a huge respect for them. And I see that reflected back at me as well. And there's a trust zone between me as a journalist, because that's, what I am at the end of the day. I am a journalist, but I think a lot of drivers and co-drivers know that I would never do them wrong in reporting anything negative against them, because I have a huge amount of respect for what they do.
Yeah.
I'm not a sensationalist. I will tell a story the way I actually see it, the way it is, hopefully, and not dramatize things.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it is one of those things, like, going back to this podcast, it's the story. There's the stories within what we're doing is actually what genuinely what makes the whole thing worthwhile. It's the human aspect of the sport. Yeah,
I think in anything, absolutely in anything, but maybe more so in this, because the longevity of the event itself, because we're, for the competitors, they're away for a whole week. I'm away from a Tuesday to a Monday. You're spending a huge amount of time with a lot of people. And for us, for my job, that is to communicate that entire thing to everyone around the world, and to get everyone to understand that it is the competition you see out on the stages, but it's so much more than that as well. And, there's a common gripe. I see it occasionally, on social. We haven't got any characters in the sport anymore. And I always think, that's utter bollocks, mate. We have got characters. They're right there in front of your face if you care to look at them. And I know that those people in 10 years' time will be going, oh, we had great characters 10 years ago. And you're like, I've been here for a long time now, so I've seen this across social media. I've seen people talk like this, and that frustrates me, that a lot of people can look back to the past with rose-tinted lenses, and it was better then. The cars were better. The drivers were better. They had more character. I'm not with them.
No,
in any respect. But that, exactly. I think it's something to do with my person. Yeah, but I am always a forward-looking person. I don't like to look back. Yeah. And, okay, you can have nostalgia for things, but I don't like the constant comparison. It's like, enjoy where we are right now in all aspects of what we're doing, not just in rallying itself. Make the most of what we've got right now and enjoy everything we have right now. And that's what I'm always trying to do on every single event is big up the people, hopefully show the characters. It can be very difficult because these people are professional athletes. Yeah. They are competing to win. Now, when things don't go right and they don't want to talk, that's part of their character.
Yeah, exactly. And it's part of the human nature, more so than anything. And for me, I suppose, for me, it's so interesting, because my theory on it is I do think that with rallying specifically, I think our personalities kind of are there, and then we find rallying. I do think that it's kind of, in one way or the other, we find it, whether it's kind of falling into it within a job, or whether it's your, you've grown up in it and it's your life to a certain extent, because you do have to be a very specific type of person. And I think for me anyway, over the years, what I have noticed is that there is a very can-do positive attitude within rallying people, because you couldn't be there. You could not go through the weekend's work, whether it's in the car, on the stages, or in the commentating box. You couldn't be there if you didn't have the belief and the stamina to be there for a full weekend.
Stamina is a good word, I think. It's funny because I've had some great co-commentators across the past couple of years, when COVID is kind of still there, but it's stopped our restrictions now. We're able to have other people in, back who were outside of our bubble before. So I've had Marcus Gronholm as a co-commentator, Julian Ingrassia, Juha Kankinen has come in, and Mads Osberg has been with us as well. And they all say to me, when we've done, if we've done just one stage, or if we've done two stages together, they take their headsets off and they're like, how do you do this all day? How do you do it? And Marcus Gronholm is like, I didn't say very much. I don't know what to say. You know what to say, but some people take a little bit of a prod, whereas Juha Kankinen didn't stop talking. It was fantastic. But a lot of them are like, God, But I could turn to Marcus Grant and we go, well, how come you're so fast behind the wheel? I don't know. We have strengths in different things, and that's the entire beauty of it.
Yeah, the skill set is there, and I think it's just kind of part of life is to find it, peel back the layers and to find where we're supposed to be. And I think, to be honest with you, from listening to you, Becs, like genuinely, it just seemed to be there for you the whole time because, like, Trailblazer comes to mind. Obviously, because you're a female in the sport, and females in the sport, like, they're few and far between. But not so much, not just that. It's more that, like, rallying wasn't in your background. Like, you were the first person to get a license in your family.
It's the proudest thing in my life, But
I mean, that's huge. Like, that is fully blazing a trail for the family. Like, and as you say, like your brother ended up doing it. Your older brother ended up doing it after you, like, which is huge. And then you've done some amazing things with your career in terms of being the first, or being a part of a team that was the first to do something. And I personally, whether it's talking about, WRC All Live or going back to finding videos of yourself interviewing your cousin at 7 years of age, like, the personality was there. Like, it was written in the stars, really. For me anyway, listening to your story.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I kind of feel very much at home where I am, with what I'm doing, and I have done for a very long time. I felt at home. You mentioned the whole, the women in motorsport and being a female commentator, and I'm really looking forward to the day when that is not so unusual, because it is still. There aren't so many female commentators. There certainly aren't so many female commentators in motorsport itself.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to have been the first for a number of things, but I don't count them in my head. And I don't think, I could sit here and probably reel off about 5 or 6 things that I was the first female to do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that because it's not important to me.
Yeah, exactly.
That element isn't important to me. And I don't see myself any different from my male commentators or my, my male broadcast journalists. I have always wanted to just be the best that I can be, regardless of whether I'm male or female. It's never mattered to me. And I've, we both, we're privileged that we can grow up in a place where we haven't had restrictions placed on us as women as such. We can, go to school, we can go to university, we can do, what we want to do. And my parents were always fantastic with that. They were, do whatever you want to do. There was never you must work, you must do this, you must do that. They would just let me do whatever I wanted to. And I know they were very proud of what I eventually went on to do. And I count myself kind of lucky every single day doing this job because I do love it. I do feel at home. I do hope it'll go on a few more years at least.
I can imagine it will.
I hope so. There are other things certainly I want to do as well, but I'd like to do them as well as doing this because it would feel very alien to not do it anymore and not have that. Not be checking split times or who's on an entry list or what stages are they using this year on that rally. Oh, that's in reverse. Okay. It would feel so strange if that all disappeared. But I'm well aware of the fact, and I think as we all are of anything now after COVID, things can just stop.
Yes.
And you're not in control of that. So also there's a part of me that's like, okay, if it does stop, then I've enjoyed it. I've had over 20 years of it and it's been brilliant. So pretty philosophical.
Oh, I love that.
At the moment. until it would stop and then you'd be like, oh my God, it stopped.
Oh no, I absolutely adore it. And I mean, because one of the things that I'm always very conscious of when I am speaking to other women within the sport is like, you mentioned all of the firsts that you have done as a woman, and I can guarantee you that I would be able to kind of list down all of the things as well that you've been the first to do, because I am so aware and always in awe of what people are able to do for the first time. And obviously within the sport it's women a lot of the time, but I'm also aware of the fact that I would love there to be a day where it's not a thing, where we're not talking about the fact that women are, it's you're a woman in the sport. Yeah, it will be great when we get to that point where, because you're there for the job that you can do. You're there for your passion for the sport and your dedication and your motivation within your job and your ability and your skill set. Whether you're co-driver, driver, organizer, whatever, you know. And it is going to be a beautiful day when we get to that point.
Yeah, hopefully it's not too far away. I mean, it's still, you know, when I say to people now I'm a motorsport commentator, well, even if I just say I'm a commentator, it's like, wow, you're a female commentator. Like, well, we do have voices in a voice box, and I can put some words together. There are other bits and pieces as well. They help. But what's interesting is that we had some young people last year when I was in Rally Spain and hosting Meet the Crews. We had a family who were kind of some VIP guests, and they brought their children, and they were 7 and 9. 9-year-old was a boy, 7-year-old was a little girl. And family were explaining, you know, what I did. And the boy just went, wow, he was like, your job's so cool. So, you know, you're a commentator and you do this, you do that. And the little girl was like, I would really love to do what you do. I would really love to do what you do. But there was no, you know, because they're young. Yeah. You know, anything is possible. There was no, you're a female commentator? Yeah. How is this possible?
They're not conditioned yet. Yeah, they're not conditioned into what
exactly,
it is. Yeah,
exactly. And that is
beautiful thing. That is a beautiful thing. Like, and that is why it is so important that the faces and the voices are there for kids, because they won't know any different at that point.
No, and I think, you know, to have, you know, I think more women in the sphere of everything in motorsport, we are seeing it. But it's like as if it's being like dripped.
It's glacial at this point.
Glacial pace. That's a really great phrase. It is glacial. When I started, there was one other female journalist who was a regular. There are more now. There are more female mechanics in the service park. Female co-drivers seem to be going through a real time of it right now, which is fantastic. Sarah Fernandez, double world champion in ERC, and got Rita Hämäläinen, WRC2 champion. There's, you know, they're there.
Incredible.
And you know, you get to a point where, like, I don't want to have to say, oh wow, look, it's a female co-driver. You know, I just you just want it to be equal. That's all it is. At the end of the day, you just want it to be a bit more equal. But you know, we need to see some women behind the wheel.
I know, that's the next step. But I'd say they're coming, to be fair, because as you mentioned, co-drivers, like that does seem to be the norm now, which is absolutely incredible to see. It truly is. Bex, one more question for you. This is actually probably my favorite question. What is your favorite motto, or do you have a motto for life?
I kind of do, I guess, because I always say on New Year's Eve every year, I never make any resolutions at all other than to enjoy life more. It's, you know, that kind of thing. It's I can't think of the exact phrase that I use now, but it's just, you know, to keep enjoying. And that for me is it. I mean, so many people, I feel, waste their lives working, worrying, and not actually enjoying, you know, anything about their lives at all. And I, over the years, you know, my kind of reasoning for wanting more happiness, more enjoyment has grown and grown and grown, because I've nursed 2 parents through very serious illness and lost them both. And you have this horrible pain in your life and this loss and this grief, which, you know, could have kind of put me one of 2 ways. I could have gone down a really horrible path and spiraled into, you know, desperate grief. And, you know, part of me did that, I think, a little bit after my mother died, because for the months after it, I can't tell you what happened on any events. I was just into an autopilot, go do the radio, come home. There was kind of nothing there. And then, you know, you kind of pick yourself up and realize that I want to enjoy every single moment that I'm here. Whether I be doing this job, whether I be doing anything, and celebrate friendships. And that's why I spend so much time with my friends. Every time I come back, I make sure I am, you know, getting on the phone to them, texting them, let's meet up, let's go for lunch, let's go for a walk, let's do this, because I love spending time with them. They're now my, you know, my family that I've chosen, because, you know, my parents aren't here anymore. And yeah, I think that's the motto for me, is just to continue to enjoy life, enjoy more, not be happier, but just enjoy. It was a word my mother always used to use whenever any of us would go out. She'd say, go, be safe, enjoy. And it stuck with me, because we don't enjoy life enough.
I think that's beautiful, and particularly the fact that it pays such homage to your mother and your upbringing and your childhood. But it is one of the things, we've mentioned high pressure environments so many times, because that's exactly what rallying is. But if you think about that, you could get very carried away with the pressure side of it, instead of actually sitting back and thinking, wow, what I am getting to do here is actually brilliant. And no matter what shit might be hitting the fan here, I am going to really just still savor the moment and enjoy the fact that I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me anyway, it works, because, Christmas and New Year's always a bit of a difficult period, I think, for many people, whether they get on with their family or they don't. And certainly for me, when you lost family, it can be a bit of a melancholy time, some days, some hours, and then you're looking immediately to a new year, and you want to kind of make yourself positive with these words. But it's not just, I'm not just saying it as this is, I'm just saying it because it's New Year's Eve. It's truly what I want for myself every single year. Yeah. It's funny you should mention that kind of, that high pressure, that, adrenaline kind of environment. You just made me think of moments in work where I'm loving my job every single day. Whatever I do on a rally, I'm loving, even if it's pissing it down with rain and I'm stuck out interviewing people in storms, which has happened so many times I can't tell you. I almost got trench foot at one rally one year. But there are moments where, and it's happened more recently in the past few years, where I've not only been commentating on All Live, but I've also done what we call the world feed. So commentating on the Power Stage and other live TV broadcasts, which is what I do regularly on ERC, as well as all the All Live commentary. But when you do it on WRC, it's such a massive thing, because the audience is huge and everything is live. And you have, on a Power Stage, you have 18 minutes of pure script that you've written yourself to be able to get through to all these timed segments. And honest to God, I don't think my heart has ever pumped so hard as when that WRC music starts playing in my headset, and I know the juggernaut is about to swing and the show is going to start, and I have got to go through all my, my script and time it perfectly and get everything out. And there's been so many occasions where I've fallen over my words and almost said shit when I was trying to say seat, and it came out as sheet. Oh, it was a nightmare. But those moments, even though I'm thinking about them now, I love that. Yeah. That huge adrenaline rush. And it's really hard to explain to anyone that doesn't kind of broadcast, because the pressure is just on you. You are the voice of the entire championship on this program, and you've got to get it right. And you can't bugger it up. Yeah. Otherwise it's going to be a complete mess. I love those moments. That's the kind of thing you live for. It's like, I guess for you, like being on the start line. I know. And that whole countdown. Exactly. And I mean, but it just goes to show you that you truly are where you're meant to be, because so many people could not thrive in that environment, and you thrive in it. To be fair, Becs, to be very, very fair, your motto, I can clearly see that you actually live it, because you can hear the passion and the excitement and the enjoyment, every word you speak. And I mean, that's exactly why you do the job that you do, and it's one of those things where, again, instilled at a very young age, where you were always told, don't forget to enjoy it, and you still are. And I'm, for one, I'm very, very grateful, because we get to enjoy the events with you, because you're enjoying them so much. No, that's a very lovely thing to say. Thank you. Honest to God, it's such a pleasure listening to you, and it's been such a pleasure talking with you today, and I genuinely thank you so much for being here with us. We're going to end it there. I could talk with you all evening, but I have to let you get back to your busy schedule. But honestly, Becs, thank you so much for being with us on The Whole Person. You're welcome. Thank you very much.
The Irish Rally Podcast is brought to you in association with Tech and Tools, PFT Travel, SCS Productions and Rally Connection.